ಗೋಪಿ, ನಿಮ್ಗೇನಾದ್ರು ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂತ, ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಶೇರ್? ನಿಮ್ಮ
ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆನಂದ, ರೈಟ್.
ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು.
ಓಕೆ,
ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಶಾಂತಿ ಮಂತ್ರ.
ಓಂ ಸಹನಾ ಭವತು ಸಹನೌ ಭುನಕ್ತು ಸಹ ವೀರ್ಯಂ ಕರವಾವಹೈ ತೇಜಸ್ವಿನಾವಧೀತಮಸ್ತು ಮಾ ವಿದ್ವಿಷಾವಹೈ. ಓಂ ಶಾಂತಿ ಶಾಂತಿ ಶಾಂತಿ. Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tannirodha. That means you reach that state with the help of Abhyasa and Vairagya, various stages. And that is what is the Sutra 15 gives us. Drishta Anushravika Vishaya Vitrishnasya Vashekara Sanya Vairagyam. Tat Param Purushakhyate Guna Vaitrishnam. Highest state of Vairagya is the final freedom from the gunas, Guna Vaitrishnam, the division of gunas. And then after that, the next sutra he comes to Vitarka Vichara Ananda Asmita Anugama Asmprajnata. Last time we have seen some aspects of it, but let me try to bring about these two sutras together. That means previous sutra and this sutra. The whatever that is supposed to be Brahman, the consciousness that is there, and that becomes the matter, and that becomes you. So in the first place, what manifestation comes as the form of sattva, rajas, tamas. So this is the first modification from the unmanifest to manifest. So at that manifest level, what we have is the sattva, rajas, tamas. It's not that object, but it is the very character itself is that sattva, rajas, tamas. That's first one. That's the reason why when he says vairagya, the last level that he says, Purushakhyate Guna Vaitrishnam. That means to say you need to go beyond these three gunas. That's what is the highest state of samadhi or the experience that we have. That means even gunas also belong to the outside. We naturally, the I is supposed to be free from the gunas also. That is the idea. So from that freedom from the gunas, then what happens when you see the way that it manifestation takes place, the first thing that manifests is the idea called as the asmita. And from asmita, then there is, next is the ananda, that means to say blissful experience of the asmita. And then the thought will be formation. Thought formation will be there, vichara. And once the thought formation are there, the thoughts are there. Then there is a vitarka, that means to say logic, reasoning, all those things happen. And then the manifestation outside in the form of activity, action. So the manifested from the manifest is in this way, that is from the level of trigunas, the gunas, and then from gunas it comes to asmita to ananda, and then vichara, and then vitarka. So in this order that it takes place. So therefore, that when we want to go back to the self, so this is the order in which that we go back. So therefore, the first thing is that vitarka, then vichara, ananda, asmita, that we go ahead. So at that level, when we say that gunas themselves do not have any specifications that way, other than the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, they are very pure gunas. And from there, when it comes to asmita, the I that is there is supposed to be a pure I. That is why last time I was explaining about, there are three types of, in English language, that we have only one word called as ego. In modern psychology, Freudian psychology, there was only one idea of ego, but then later on, the psychologists, they started thinking that we should have two types of ego. One is a good ego, bad ego. That means useful ego, and something which is useless ego. Like that, they were trying to work with various things. But then Indian philosophy was very clear that when they said asmita, it's supposed to be the good ego. And this asmita manifests in three different levels, three different ways. One way is that the three are kartrutva, bhoktrutva, jnatrutva. Kartrutva is the doer ego, and bhoktrutva is the experiencer ego, and jnatrutva, identifier ego. So these three egos that are there, which are necessary for our life. Good ego means basically that's what the whole creation, that's what the whole personality is built on. In the sense that I have to do it. The doing aspect has to come from within me. Like the way that the plant comes from the seed, then the doing aspect is there that makes the plant to grow. The same way that we come out of the mother's womb, then this doing aspect is the one which brings about various limbs and then activity. All those things are there. So activities and the limbs, that they are together going with that. Like for example, my seeing is the one which brings about the eyes. My touching sensation will bring about the skin. And the way much more grosser when we come to that, my desire to walk, the karma, the doer ego, is the one which brings about the legs. So like that there is this doer ego is the one which brings about all those kind of things. We do it. And we need to do it. When we have the legs, we need to walk. So therefore, we can maintain the legs, we can keep the legs intact. The second thing is the experiencer ego. I have an experience of good and bad. I have an experience of hot and cold. I have an experience of this is rough and then smooth and all those things. And these experiences are the one which brings about the next changes that are there within me. I have to accept these experiences, and this is what is the good ego, called as the bhoktrutva ego. And you can see that how in the child in the womb, the mother takes food which is not agreeable, you can feel that the child immediately responds to that. That means even at that level, that the child has that experiencer ego very strongly. Then the next one is the identifier ego, and this is very strong within us. So these are the good egos that we have, and this is what is asmita. There are several different levels of our asmita, that is identifier ego. At a very deep inner level, that the first thing is that I'm the sattva, rajas, tamas. These are the qualities that we have. And then later on that we are male and female, and this is there in whole creation aspect. In fact, without that, these two things, that there is no existence possible. And the creation takes place because of this. And therefore, that this identification is there as male, male and female. And from further onwards, that this comes various other identification, which runs into the society also in the form of father and mother, parents and children, and then teacher and the student. So like that, wherever that there is this flow necessary, immediately this identification takes place, and then flow is possible. Creation is nothing but activity. When we take it, activity is possible because that these two separation, the separation has taken place in the place of identification. So therefore, this is what is good ego. And then this good ego now tries to interact with the world outside so that there is a bliss as an experience. And without the bliss, there is no activity that is done. Either it may be short-term bliss or the long-term bliss, but then happiness is background, is the back of everything. That's what Upanishad says, that we do everything because that there is the bliss experience. Sukhameva labdhva karoti, nasukam labdhva na karoti. And after that, then we have various ideas, interactions, and that becomes like vichara, thoughts. And these thoughts that we use to see, that we compare, interact, and all those things, that happens in the form of vitarka. So therefore, after vitarka, then we enter into the world outside. Somebody may be very highly intellectual, somebody may be less intellectual, somebody may have a lot of experience of various vicharas, somebody has few vicharas. So all these things, and another thing is that from time to time, that this particular vichara keeps changing. So the creation takes place. Then manifestation comes to the world outside. So therefore, when we go back into the backside of the mind, and that is where we have a state where we are the masters behind it. That's what is the consciousness. So tarka is the logic. I can be with the tarka, or I can be without the tarka. This is what last time I was saying, that there is a position of mind naturally available where I can use the tarka as a part of my being. Second thing is, without the tarka also I can be there. But then when I come out of tarka, then the next is that subtler level than that tarka is the vichara. I can be with the idea of a thought, or I can be free from the thought and still I'm existing in this world. I'm being in this world, and that's what is the savitara and then nirvichara. And then the third is the bliss, ananda is my experience. I can be with that, but I can be free from that and become purely asmita, the being that is there. So therefore, this asmita, and then after that, behind that is the way that we are the consciousness. That is the way that the picture is there. This is how basically these are the samprajnata levels of samadhi. Vitarka samadhi, nirvitarka samadhi, vichara, nirvichara samadhi, ananda samadhi, and asmita, and beyond that is the idea of self. So now after that, once we come out of these things, then still that there are impressions that are there already within us. So these are all the things which are in the world outside. Vichara happens on the world outside. Asmita is about the world outside. But beyond that, there is something which is Asamprajnata Samadhi. And this is what is the 18th Sutra he gives us. Virama pratyayabhyasa purvaha samskara seshaha anyaha. See, pratyaya abhyasa purvaha. There are two things that are there. Pratyaya means object. Abhyasa means the practice, activity that we do. So when we are free from both object and the activity or the practice that we do, and we have gone beyond these two things, and that's what purvaha, that means even prior to that, is a state what is called as a virama, freedom from both these pratyaya and abhyasa. Purvaha, before that, what we have is samskara, and that samskara is the impression that are there, and sesha. This is anyaha. Anyaha means basically it is samprajnata samadhi. Anyaha is asamprajnata samadhi. So that means what is there beyond the samprajnata samadhi deep inside is the Asmprajnata samadhi. It's all there within us. If we did not have that kind of a thing, then there is no way that we could trace back into these. But they are there, which is already there. And what is that? These uh, samskaras manifest within us. How the samskaras residue of samskaras. That means samskara means I'm interacting with the world outside, and whatever that is the residue that is left with samskara is that manifests within us. When you remove all the superficial surface kind of a thing, this exists at the background. And these samskaras are in the 5 stages. One is called as the mudha and the other is kshipta. Mudha is supposed to be the dull, quiet, and should say like zombie. There's no activity there. But apart from that, there is one thing called as restlessness, and that's what is called as kshipta. Either the mind can be in the form of mudha, or we are in the form of mudha, or in the form of kshipta. Kshipta means basically restless. Without any particular reason that you become restless inside. Always Shastriji used to say that just sit quiet and see what happens. You become restless. There is no specific activity particularly, but then restlessness is there, which is of a general nature within us. So this is what is called a kshipta. Our second thing is that mudha, which is often mistaken to be the samadhi state, highest state of samadhi, but this is supposed to be a dull state. It's not really that you are lively, conscious, that is pure consciousness is not there, life is not there, but then you are dull. So these are the 2 aspects that are there within us. The second thing is vikshipta and ekagra. Vikshipta is that it is quality similar to restlessness, but restlessness is without any particular direction, without any particular focus, whereas vikshipta is constantly going on, leaving from one focus to another to third and fourth and like that. That means some people are there that every second they'll be changing from one point to the other point. It is inside the mind. And you sit down for meditation, think of that one point to second to third, fourth, like that. It just goes on. So these are the different kind of things that can be engrossed in various, it may be various senses or within the sense itself, various points that can be there. This is what is vikshipta. Or the third quality of fourth quality that we could have is ekagra. Vikshipta is multi-pointed but towards multi-objects within the mind. And the second thing is ekagra, that is focused on one particular point. And then after these 2 things are over, then what is the next state that we have within the mind itself is a state of nirodha. That means everything is dissolved. It is not dull, but it is just peaceful. See, these different stages that are there within us at the level of our own samskara shunya. Now the samskara shunya, how does it happen? Samskara, how does it happen? We have a very beautiful picture that is there. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives how this samskara takes place. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshat buddhinasha pranashyati. At a gross level that Krishna gives that particular sutra, and that is very similar. That's a very good indicator of how the samskaras are formed within us. What happens is that the moment that you interact with the object outside, either it is in the form of an object or in the form of activity. It can be abhyasa, it can be pratyaya. Pratyaya means an object, abhyasa means a tendency of doing it. When these 2 things, when you are coming across in the object outside, the first thing is that you come across the first place. It's an incident, but then incident repeated becomes like a habit. So that means to say that you are already conditioned to do that kind of a thing inside you. So whether it is an activity or whether it is an object, your mind gets into that kind of a groove of doing an activity, this is what is the becomes like a habit. And then habit further becomes like hardened habit. That means to say, left to itself, mind tends to go for that. This is what we call it as habit. Mind does not keep quiet. You are not keeping quiet, but you just go behind it. And this is what is abhyasa. But then what happens is that the second level, that's what is basically the vasana, uh, habit. Habit is what is where your tendency is to go towards that, but then further this tendency deepens into us, become like a hardened habit, which in Sanskrit we have this word called as vasana. What is the difference between the habit and hardened habit? Habit is that there is a tendency to go towards that, either in the form of an activity or in the form of towards an object. And it can be both ways. Either it can be pratyaya or abhyasa purvaha, and then you go behind it. But then what happens? It's all in the mind. But then what happens is that it has not yet disturbed your physiology or your system. And when it starts entering into the system, that's what is called as the vasana. Vasana is the level where all the other functions which are supposed to be going on in normal way, even that gets affected by this samskara, this particular hardened habit called as vasana. So vasana level, it percolates into physiology, but then later on, much deeper than that, we have the samskara which goes deep into us, and that's in the form of at genetic level it enters into. So therefore, samskara, when we say, it is that our interaction with the world outside for such a long time, it is not just one life, life after life after life. Not only that, as the commentator Patanjali says, that it is various species that we have gone through in our life, all those samskaras that are there so deep into us, the interaction, the habit, and all those things go deep into us in such a way that they become samskara. So then these samskaras are the tendencies that are left within us. And at the genetic level, that means to say at the formation level, these things are there. And these samskaras now are the reasons for us to go either into the mudha or vikshipta, or into the kshipta or vikshipta or ekagra or nirodha. These are all the things that are there because of the samskara. So now there is a stage where you come to the nirodha. That means all the samskaras are left behind, and then you are peaceful. And that's what is the next state that we get into. So these are the 5 different stages in which the samskaras within us will be there. And now it's not that somewhere, sometime when you sit for meditation and all that, especially that it happens like that. Even in the normal day-to-day life also, you're just relaxing, suddenly your mind keeps wandering in a kshipta way, or maybe wandering in a vikshipta way, in the sense that you are particularly involved in one object or the other, one point or the other, and then multi-point that you go into. Or maybe that your mind is just poking on just one particular point in the form of focus. But all these things are the various stages of samskara within the mind. So this is what is Asmprajnata samadhi. So virama pratyabhyasa purvaha samskara seshaha anyaha. So now what happens is that these samskara seshaha, that means how these samskaras are formed. We have discussed about earlier thing that is there, and that there can be 3 different types of samskara sesha that's there within us. And this is what classically people define. One is called as sanchita, and that is from the previous actions that we have done from several times, several uh, lives or whatever it is, and then all that is accumulated within us. And there's another important aspect is, and second is the agami from the temptations and the tendencies that we have. So we have our own tendencies or temptations, and then we accrue. We can't leave that, and then that becomes like an agami. And third is the prarabdha, or the ignorance of activities involved. because of lack of knowledge about it, lack of its influence on us, that we get caught up into that influence. This is where people get into the addictions, prarabdha. That means that ignorance of activity, we did not know that it is trying to create an impression on us, and then we allow that impression to take place. This is kind of thing. And the sanchita of the previous karmas, actions, we all have that. The idea, it is not just only from our own tendencies that are there, we carried from the previous life. Sanchita, that's what previous lives that we have carried. But then not only that, that after interacting with this, and that we see that there are some tendencies or impressions which we carry from the various generations. Like for example, a child will have the features of the parents, and that means, so where is that parents features come from? Even all these things come because of that you are a tendency to bring about all those things into yourself from their actions, from their karmas that is there. So why we are born in a particular family, why we are born in a particular land, or what is the way that we have acquired all those things are, it's all, we have already planned all those things, therefore that we get into. So that means to say these are all our own samskaras. Sanchita samskara, or the agami samskara, or prarabdha samskara. These are the things which have made our personality. So that means to say every moment that you are living is, please understand that it's your own choice. It's your own choice brought about what you are today. So therefore, one very important aspect is that you have created all these things that are there, then you can come out of it. And you are a person who is not without all those things that are there behind it. So therefore, it is easy for you to work reversal of all those things, or come out of all those things which is there naturally within you. That's why it is said that yoga, we are not achieving anything, samadhi, we are not achieving anything, but whatever that is there superimposed on us, whatever that has been painted on us, and we are trying to remove that dust, that aspect of it, so that we shine forth. That's what when Buddha went to samadhi, nirvikalpa, the shunya sthiti, when he came out, people asked him, what is that you gained? Buddha said, I did not gain anything. But then you did sadhana for such a long time. And then now we can see that you are so bright, you can see the luster on your face, and must have been some change has happened. So what is that? He said, change has happened, but it is not that what I gained anything, but I lost. I lost all those things that are there from generations after generations, and then from various kind of yoni, that means to say species that I have gone through. All that, whatever that agreed samskara, that is the dust that was there, is clean. And that's why basically what I am experiencing. What is that? So therefore, the samadhi state or Asmprajnata samadhi is there within him. Only thing is that these practices that he removed all that which is superimposed and found himself. That is the state. Now, bhava pratyaha Vidayaha prakritilayanam. This is a very, very important sutra, the 19th sutra. Now, where all these samskaras were there, like for example, that in the previous sutra that we go, or even previous sutra that when we go, that that we have all these samskaras which are coming from life after life after life, generation after generation, not only generation after generation, but the species after species. In fact, it's very beautifully depicted by the way that we are evolved as a human being today. It's a process which comes from the level of where we were just a single cell that is there in the body, and from that single cell, amoeba, from there we just grew up into what we are today. And this has been so beautifully portrayed in the form of Dashavatara. You see, look at the Dashavatara, the 10 avatars that you see, is that Matsya, Kurma, Varaha. Then you see that Matsya is the one which is there inside the water, and it is completely covered, and then slowly evolution takes place. Is it not like that? You are just simply like a single cell which is floating in the fluid, amniotic fluid, or the mother's fluid that is there, and through it that you have grown. And then there is a point where now you have developed full equipment within yourself, so that you are now ready to come out of that particular thing. That's the moment when you are fully fit enough to come out of it. That's when you are pushed by the mother to bring you out into the world. It was such a big, huge kind of a transformation that has taken place, because until that time that you existed as one unit in the one of the limbs of the mother, and that means to say the food comes from the mother, and you are safely protected by the fluid all around. You have never seen anything outside, and there is nothing like that you independently have to do anything. So that's what you are at that point of time, absolutely safe. In fact, if you can imagine that state where you are so absolutely safe, you just don't feel like coming out of it, because you are safe there, you are protected there, everything is so wonderful. But what happens is that when you come out of it, that is when basically it's a big shock. I've seen a video a long time ago. I don't remember where I'd seen it, but that was so beautiful. It was one of the videos somebody has presented when he was talking about the childbirth, about that. So beautifully given. And it's a little digression, but that's useful. How we have come away from our nature. It shows that a bird creates a nice, wonderful nest, cozy nest, and then lays eggs, and then gives the whole warmth to the birds, and completely covering the eggs from the with the wings, and then the eggs hatch, and little chicks come out of it. I don't know how they have taken the picture of the chicks which are coming out of the eggs, and then those chicks, they come out of it in that cozy, wonderful warmth of the bird that is there, and they grow from that, and that's what is the birth. The second thing, he uses the beautiful forest, thick forest kind of a thing. And there's another very important thing, is they either give in the night or around the dawn, at that time that they give birth. And then a zebra that just giving birth to a giraffe, giving birth to a baby giraffe, and then standing in that quietude, all that what you hear is the birds chirping on their one side, and then the giraffe gives birth to a baby giraffe, and then falls out of the mother's womb, and then how lies down on the earth, and then mother is licking that. The first one, when the bird giving the cozy atmosphere around that child and then giving birth to that. Parallelly, he shows in a operation theater, when the mother gives birth to a child, and what the child is immediately there, the bird was covered with from all sides that quiet the darkness, because the mother is covering with the wings and all that, and the warmth is there. But here the child comes out of the mother wombs, and then first time, the eyelids are not even formed completely, and within that, then you can see the red lights and green lights flashing and all that, and then making the sounds of these all those things. And then the child is brought out, and he shows how beautifully that the child's eye is actually irritated by these lights that are there. Second thing is, he shows about the giraffe giving birth to a baby giraffe and then falling down on the ground, just quiet, and all that what he hears is the simple birds chirping here and there. And then here the baby is brought out immediately. The doctor is shouting, nurse is shouting that give me the tongues, give me this, and then you can hear the metal sounds, the equipment and all those things, and then the child comes out of it. And third is a beautiful thing that he shows is that there is another animal where the same giraffe is licking the baby giraffe and sitting down by the side of the baby giraffe, giving the mother's touch with that. Whereas here, the child is taken out of the mother's womb, cleaned and washed, and then with all the solutions, and then wrapped in the cloth, and then put it in the incubator or something like that. And then through the window, mother is looking at the child, and child is looking at the mother. Many times, even the child may not be there by the side, that there are set of children who are there and set of mothers who are there. My God. And then at the end of it, the commentator showing all those things says that, where are we going? See, that means how far that we are going away from that nature. So that means to say that this whole samskara that was there right from the time of that single cell, we have acquired that samskara. These samskaras there within us, through which that we pass through, and those samskaras were necessary so that we come through the mother's womb, and then come out of the mother's womb, and then come into the world fresh and started breathing, recognizing the whole thing that is there in the world outside, and then the journey starts. You can see that how every limb develops because of those samskaras that are there. So when we say the samskara, Patanjali never meant it was something which is wrong, which is bad. But then he says that don't get caught up in that samskaras. You need to come out of it. And that's what is the way that, because samskaras are there for the sake of manifestation in the world outside. But when you go back to and that's what is samskaras, for the sake of doing. And then for the state of being, no samskara is necessary. You need to come out of these samskaras. That's what is the idea of nirodha, chittavritti nirodha. That means you not only come out of this, very often we say in the yoga classes that calm down the mind, make the mind peaceful, and then relax. These are a very superficial level we are talking about. What Patanjali gives us about is a state that you have within you, where you have done the nirodha of mudha, kshipta, vikshipta, and ekagra, all these samskaras that you leave behind, and then you come to the state of nirodha, and that's what he gives us the idea called as these samskaras. That's why it is sanjita, agama, prarabdha. All these kind of things that are there, now you go behind all those things, that's what you are. And this is what, when Buddha said that all these things are removed, and that is what we have come. But then all these years, we have not reached that state. We all have that carried on with our life. Where do we carry it? This is where the sutra is very important. Bhava pratyayaha videha prakriti layanam. Now what happens is that the cause and the physical existence that is there, what happens with us is that it goes with us. That means to say that this consciousness which we are, what we call it as Atma, this Atma what we are, and this Atma is loaded with all these samskaras. As I said, that several generations this samskara, several yoni samskara that is there, and all these samskaras, that means out of all these experiences, what we do is that we try to filter it out. Whatever that is superficial, we leave it behind, and whatever that is there deep inside, that we carry along with us. And these samskaras that are there, we carry with us life after life, so that now these samskaras are there, and we stay. Now with these samskaras, we are looking for another body where we can manifest these particular samskaras, another deha where we manifest these samskaras. Dehi is what we are, and deha is where we manifest these samskaras, and we acquire that. Very poetically it is said that we acquire from all these panchabhutas 5 different elements, that we acquire the body so that we can manifest these things, and then journey can continue. And until that time when we are having all those things, but we are just there without this body, without any body, and this is what is called as Vidayaha. Vidayaha is without any body, but we stay there. This is the samskaras is supposed to be the idea of whatever that I like it, I carry with me. Whatever that is important for me, I carry with me. So all those things that are there, and they don't have any physical existence, but then they have a thought level, or I mean, better word, we don't have it. That's why unmanifest level are manifest not with any body, with any physical feature, and that's what it says. Example for that is, what about your dream? Dream is a state where the existence is there very much, a thought is there, idea is there, and everything is there, but it has no existence in the form of physical reality. So there is an existence, but there is no physical reality that is there. In that sense, in the same way, like the way dream exists within us, Vidayaha, without any body, and we exist, and then we are everywhere in the nature. That's why Vidayaha Prakritilayana. That means to say, we don't have any particular locus. When the body we take up, then we have a locus. When the moment that we come in the mother's womb in the form of a small little speck, and that first little cell that is there, from then onwards that we have a locus. But before that, we don't have a locus, but we exist in the form of a nature. And in fact, that our memories will keep us around a focus for some particular time in that area. And that's why we have idea called that our impressions of any particular place that we superficially carry, and we exist at that level. A person who leaves this body does not leave immediately with all the samskaras that are there, but then he still has the samskara or the attachment of that particular place, particular people around that. But then he is in the prakriti laya, in the state of merged in the nature, but at the same time that he is around that. That's why many times people report saying that a person dies, even after 3-4 days, that they can still feel the presence of that person in that area. And that is, he or she is existing there because the attachment for that, the samskara of that place is still holding on to that. A physical samskara, that means to say the house and the people and all that that is there exist with that. So we are around that area. And this being around that area, it is supposed to be there for 14 years. This is what is called as phantom body. Phantom body is that body is not there, but the body's feeling that is there, and the person literally feels to be there. And many people can feel that his presence there. They report it. It's not that they are creating, imagining out of it, but then it is something which has got a reality in the form of existence without any body. Videha existence. And this Videha existence, what we call it as Priya Atma, and that's why a joining of Priya Atma is what is called as Pretatma. Unfortunately, this is translated as ghost and became something like a totally weird kind of a thing. It is our own existence of our own samskaras, and in that area, in the nature that is there, what we like is the one that is what is the way that what we call it as Preta. But what happens is that now there is a tendency, and this might exist maybe for some time or maybe for a long time before it comes back to the next life. So this is what Krishna says very beautifully in Bhagavad Gita. Says that Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantaha parasparam bhavayantaha. That's what is the way that Krishna explains about this. The idea is that if I think of something good, something nice, then it looks like some souls which are supposed to be thinking in the same direction what I'm thinking. They try to help me in that direction. We unknowingly, unconsciously that you get the support. I just have a thought that I want to do something good, and I go ahead, and then good forces help me to see that it happens. And I don't know where that forces come from, in what way the help comes from, we do not know. But then these forces, these are the pretatmas which try to help us in that direction. It's such a beautiful way that these things, the moment that I think of something good, then these good forces will help me to go in that direction. And these good forces are existing in the form of Videha, but in the form of Prakriti Laya. So this is what Patanjali gives us, that Bhava Pratyayaha Videha Prakriti Layanam. That means to say, these samskaras that are there may not have a body, but then they come out of this particular thing. Along with that, the consciousness goes with these tendencies that are there, samskaras that are there, exist around. And because that they are in the Prakritilaya, they don't have any idea, they don't have any restrictions, they have to work here or work there. Sometimes it so happens that suddenly that you get some intuitive way, some help, something like that, which you cannot put it in the form of any logic, and then that helps come from somewhere, and then your matter proceeds. And like it might have happened in the various great saints, like Vivekananda. Just one suggestion, it may be in the classroom that it has come in the form of a teacher saying that maybe this poetry is created by the poet when he had a God experience, and that one sentence clicked Vivekananda, saying that, who is that? Where is that? And from that led him to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. One small little statement on the newspaper saying that Parliament of World Religion will be organized during that time, and suddenly that one statement ignited the interest in Vivekananda. Look at what are the things that happened. These are the things which you cannot imagine how it happens, and it happens from out of the blue. It happens. So like that, several things that, I mean, I'm just quoting from Vivekananda because that has been recorded, that has been the history. But when you look back into your life, you look into yourself, that you see there are several such instances where you can't explain, but then helps come from unknown quarters to see that how you can go ahead. And this particular sutra will give us that positive attitude, saying that if you want to do good, go ahead and do good, because good forces always are waiting for you to do help. But on the other hand, it also gives us a caution, saying that if you want to do bad, there are bad forces which are there. So they also try to help in the bad way. So let's not go by that way. It's always said that, this, when somebody is imprisoned, we call it a siksha. Siksha actually is learning, but then we call it a siksha for the punishment. But you know what happens when that person, an ordinary small little thief, and he is put in the prison, then he in the prison that he finds out somebody who is a very senior guy, he has done a bigger crime. So he himself thought to be as a guru, but he finds a mahaguru there. And then he never thought of that, finding out. And that fellow says how you can do bigger crime without getting caught in that. So this fellow comes out of the jail with full siksha. That means this is full learning process. So therefore, if you have bad tendencies, bad will be there. Good tendencies, good will be there. Who are the good forces? These are the good forces which are bhava pratyayaha, Vidayaha, prakriti layanam. These are the states that are there within us. So therefore, that basically we try to go ahead with that. So Patanjali includes this aspect of it, manifested aspect of it. That is what the Sankhya talks about. Patanjali's unmanifest aspect is going back into the mind. You look at the unmanifest aspect, we have Samprajnata, where that you look at the objective world outside. But then behind that, there is so much of depth of memory that is there, and which can carry you beyond the life. And that is what is Asmprajnata samadhi. All these layers are there. Behind that Asmprajnata samadhi is what is that consciousness, pure consciousness that is there. So now this 20th sutra will come to that, and then probably I think we'll stop at that level. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna, Purvaka, Itaresham. So these samskara that is there, which is there within us in the form of tendencies, Shraddha and senses Virya, Smriti and Samadhi, Prajna will help one to experience this Asamprajnata Samadhi. We go to this Asamprajnata Samadhi with these ideas, or we have this Asamprajnata Samadhi within us. We are able to perceive that, we are able to hold on to that. When we have Shraddha, and second thing is Virya, that is the sense purity, and then Smriti, deep inner memory, and Samadhi, it is the awareness, and then calmness, discrimination, and then these things will help us to experience this Asamprajnata Samadhi. Now let me explain a few things about that. Shraddha. Shraddha is a very beautiful word. Lack of proper word in English that we translate as faith, but it's not faith. So we have various words called as the faith, belief, and all these things are there. Or yes, we say the trust. Trust is a very superficial word. Very superficial word is trust. It is like the way I'm sitting at the airport and then I have to go to the buy some water bottle, something like that, and then my luggage is there. Somebody sitting next to me is also waiting for the luggage. I see that yes, he's also co-passenger. So naturally, I trust that he will keep my bag. I just say, please take care of this bag. I go for about 10-15 minutes to bring about water bottle. We have a trust. Trust is very absolutely local. It's only for that moment. That moment. Without the trust, we cannot go ahead so many things. So therefore, trust is necessary in our life. The second thing is what is called as the faith. Faith is also not very deep idea. It is like faith is like this, that again, the faith is something that we are going into an unknown journey. Unknown journey. Like for example, that I have to go through a surgery. I really do not know what will be the end point of surgery, what will come out of surgery. It can become complicated, less complicated, all those things are there. But I'm putting myself into the hands of somebody completely, totally. Now that person, I don't know whether it's good or not, but I have to go to him. And so therefore, what happens is that I collect the data. I collect the information that I ask people that what happens. Yeah, he is reliable, he is good, and the surgery he did well. In my this case, that case, like that. For any small little thing, not even surgery, even ordinary simple sickness also, that you try to inquire about few things. There is one thing called as the there is a doubt that is there, but on this other side that there is a faith. Wherever there is a faith, there is also doubt behind it. But what happens is that this balance of faith and doubt, it's on the two pans that is there, and slowly by inquiring and information about that, the faith goes on increasing, the doubt goes less. So that means to say I doubt less, and then I have greater faith in that person. This is something which is verifiable. This can be inquired into. So like that, we try to go to a doctor where there is an amount of faith in that, faith in the doctor. Like for example, this a friend, a person came to Mullah Nasruddin and said that, look, I have this typhoid, and then would you like to treat the typhoid? He said yes, because I want to be very careful about that, because there is other doctor who was there, other hakim like you, and then people who went there with the typhoid, and then finally they found that he died because of influenza or because of some other disease. Whereas, what about you? You said, no, don't worry about it. Whoever came to me with typhoid, he died of typhoid only. So that means to say I'm reliable on that. My diagnosis is reliable. Treatment may be different. So like that, this is what is the one which contributes towards the faith. Various factors that are there. But beyond that faith, there is one thing as the idea called as that you believe in particular thing. Belief is not something which can be verifiable, but belief is something which is very personal. The faith is something that you can inquire about for others and then develop your faith. That one person is faithful, that he gives the ideas, that his faith he can transfer to you. But whereas the belief is something which is absolutely yours. It's like the way that I'm going, again, it's also I'm getting into something which is unknown area. Like for example, I'm going for the exam. I prepared very well, subject very well. I know everything. I can really answer everything. But in spite of it, I don't know whether I'll be able to answer all those things, because the doubt is there. I have always this doubt saying that whether I'll be able to write all those things, whether my memory works, all those things. So therefore, all these questions will be there within me. And any amount of inquiry with the outside will not solve that. There's still that lingers on. Not only that, I've seen the children when they're before going for the exam. Last minute, they're so tense. And then they look at something, and then somebody's saying something, and the word falls into their ear. Immediate, oh my God, I did not prepare for that. Immediately they open the book and then try to look at it. See, that all shows that how much of doubt that is there on themselves. And this cannot be solved by any amount of inquiry. That is the reason why we have what is called as the idea called as the beyond that. And that's what is basically I, it is not the trust, it's not faith, but it is something like I believe that there is some higher force which will take care of all those things. I surrender to that higher force. That higher force, what we call it as God. God is coming to rescue me. It is my own personal thing. That means to say, I believe in a God who is all knowledge, and I attributed all those things to him so that he will take care of my exam. That's why I go to Ganesha. Ganesha is a God that I can put my faith in him. And this faith is absolutely personal. If I ask somebody from Ethiopia to have a faith in Ganesha, he says, I have no idea about Ganesha, particularly a person sitting with that big belly and person sitting with an elephant head. When you ask me to come, have faith in him and I have belief in him, I just don't believe. And he has his own. Not only that, even we have portfolios for that. Like, for example, Ganesha is good for exam. But then we say that somebody else who has to bless for something else, and particularly when you are fear, when you are going in a dark place, and that's where Ganesha will not help us. I mean, he himself cannot go fast. He's sitting on a rat. How can he manage? So that's why that time, Ganesha, you take rest. But then I'll go to Hanumanta Anjaneya. That's why whenever we going to the dark place, we say Hanuman Chalisa. Not that some Hanuman comes and rescues us. Idea is that my insecurity, my feeling of restlessness that is there, I put on somebody. And that is what is the idea of the having just the belief in that. Hanuman will take care. When we had our new car, and then nice beautiful car that is there in the house. So whole family, we were there together and said, let's go for some drive together. So we were driving first day, just arrived, new car, fresh. And then where do we go? In fact, very close to our house, there is a Ganesha temple that is there. So we went there, but suddenly we realized that was the exam season. Exam season, Ganesha temple, you see that it is swarmed by the students who are there because Ganesha will save them in their exam. Anyway, we don't have to wait there for such a long time. We just go for another temple, any other temple. So we said, okay, there was a Hanuman temple near our house. So we went to that temple. Absolutely clean, clear, because Hanuman himself is illiterate. Where is the question of he's helping somebody in exam? So our car, we went there and then we went inside the priest. We talked to him, brought him out. He didn't understand why we are asking him to come out. When we asked him to come out and then we gave him, that the ritual follows is you actually put some lemons and all that. We showed him the lemon and then the puja material and showed the new car. Then he asked, is it a new car? He said, yeah. And then you are doing puja for the new car? Yes. He had a hearty laugh. He said, Hanuman cannot do anything for that. You have to go to Ganesha. See, the priest also knows where you have to go. So that means to say the gods, portfolios, and then hierarchy, all those things are there, but it is personally for you. That's why basically belief is absolutely personally for you. From belief that we come out of, we get into this religion. There's no point in that my belief is trying to trust on somebody else. It's absolutely our own. So therefore, trust, faith, belief, 3 level, and Shraddha is much beyond that. Shraddha is basically, I go with a positive mind towards that, is what is called a Shraddha. This is very important point that Patanjali brings about, because later on in Samadhi Pada, Sadhana Pada, without the Shraddha, we cannot proceed. If we have a doubt, If we don't have Shraddha with that, we cannot go ahead. This is the difference between the science, investigation into external world, investigation into the internal world. Investigation in the external world, you go with a doubt. And then you go to the lab and then prove that, yes, I went with a doubt and then I proved that this is possible. This happens like that. Whereas in spirituality, in inward journey, we have to go with that Shraddha. Shraddha is not blind faith. Shraddha is a positive mind. But a lot of time people think Shraddha means a blind faith. So when you go to the teacher, you go with that Shraddha. You go to the temple, you go with the Shraddha. You go to the world outside. Same way that you go to the meditation, sit down inside, and then you go with the Shraddha. And therefore, the Shraddha is very important thing. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna, and all these things will help us to go towards into that. Next time when we meet, we'll try to look at the other aspects of it, how beautifully Patanjali puts these things, coined these things. And very important thing is that outside this, there is nothing else. In the sense that he really completely brings about the wholesome picture there. He gives us the whole meal by giving the Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna, Purvaka, Itaresham. This is very beautiful sutra that we'll get into time next time, this 20th sutra. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
The mentioning about Janma or Purva Janma Samskara.
Yeah.
Can we identify what are the Purva Janma Samskara we have? And if we want to get rid of it, can we get rid of it?
Wow, it's a very weighty question. One thing is, yes, we can identify. We can identify because few things happen which normally doesn't happen to the others, but it will happen to us with a totally non-existing kind of a reality anywhere around. Like a musician develops a music, suddenly it just comes out of him without any indication how he got into that. This is one thing that can happen in the form of samskara that is there. It can only happen with the help of Purvajanma samskara and not otherwise. So this is one aspect of it. And sometimes what happens is that you yourself get into a state where you are almost like blocked from the existing world. Just suddenly, it's like you are completely blocked from the existing world, and suddenly you get into something which is a totally out of the kind of a picture that is there. This is what is the samskara that you get into. Yes. And another thing is that only way that you can come out of it is that all these things, this is where we have the whole chapter. That's what is called as Vibhuti-pada. Samskaras can easily get caught up into those kind of things that it can become like an ego or existence or this thing, tendency. So therefore that single goal of Shraddha, of getting towards that consciousness, is the one which helps us to see that we can free ourselves from the samskara. Or we are free from the samskara, don't get caught up in that. That's what in the case of Buddha, there is a beautiful story goes on like that. There are so many tendencies that came onto him when he has gone through this particular experience of samadhi. They're called as mara. And then at that point of time that he just put all those things aside and he laughed at them. He said, no, I don't get ensnared by these things. I have to go beyond. So he is able to manage himself beyond that. So it is you rejecting the samskaras is the way that you go beyond. See, particularly at that point of time when you see that all around you, the people do not have that kind of an ability, suddenly you find that you have some extraordinary ability, extraordinary perception. It's like that. Easily get caught into that. This is where basically, whatever that your question exactly is the one which leads us to the whole of chapter called as the Vibhuti Pada. One has to be very careful about that.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Raghuramji.
Thank you.
I have a question or a request for every participant. If you have any of